Hey Lionheart folks, it's Lev. Welcome back to another video. For those of you who are new, I use he and pronouns. I'm just gonna get straight into the video. Today, in this video, I wanted to talk about passing, my experiences with passing, and how it is a double-edged sword. And I will explain passing, don't worry. So, in the trans and gender diverse context of the word, passing means, or it refers to when someone is perceived as the gender that they are. For example, I am a transgender man, which means I am assigned female birth. I'm not a cisgender man. I am a trans man, and I pass when I am read and perceived as a man. Basically, I am a man and I'm trans, and people also see me as a man and treat me as a man, so I pass as a man. Um, I'll I'll talk more about this in the stories, but there were times where I didn't pass as a man, and it was this very dysphoric. And there's also a sort of related term called stealth or going stealth. Actually, I'll talk about the double-edged sword thing at the end after my experiences, but going stealth is sort of like passing, but it has another element to it. My understanding of going stealth is, for example, people perceive me as the gender I am, but they don't know I'm trans. I guess, for example, I said for example again. When I go walk down the street or go to the grocery store or something and people call me man and dude, they are treating me as a man, which I am, but they do not know that I'm a trans man. That's going stealth. Like, I sort of blend in and people don't know I'm trans. Now for the tea. Yes, a little bit more context for folks who have never seen me before and this is your first video. I came out as trans in January of last year, got a haircut in Feb, and then started medically transitioning by going on testosterone in January of this year, so I'm just over 10 months on testosterone. Rewind to the start. When I was like pretty sure I was trans, it's like end of 2019, but I hadn't actually come out to myself yet. And when I came out in January, I actually came out to one of my best friends first at midsummer last year. She was the first person I've told. Come out to officially saying I'm trans. And I lived with like long hair and didn't start socially transitioning into mid-February because I was waiting for my uni graduation. And it was like one of the last moments, I guess, in my life in the academic sense that I would remember myself as the person I was before I started transitioning. So my uni graduation photos, me with long hair and stuff like that, it's like one of the last thing, because I'm not going back to having long hair because that makes me feel dysphoric, not because I'm just obeying gender norms. If I wanted long hair, I would have left my hair long. It's just dysphoria. That's anyway, back to the passing element. Before that period where I came as trans in January and before I got my haircut in Feb, I did not pass. I was very dysphoric. I still use women's bathrooms because I didn't pass as a guy. I didn't look like a guy, and it made me feel scared, and I was scared of other people mistreating me for someone who looks like a woman going into the men's bathroom. I actually used women's restrooms for a while, even after I came out as trans, because I was scared of getting assaulted in the men's restroom. That's a juicy topic for another video. So yes, once I got my hair cut in Feb, I didn't cut it this short. It was basically I got rid of my ponytail and stuff, but my hair was like still up to here. It was like long and it was still up to here. It was not as short as this. Like, I didn't get a fake cut or anything. It did not look like this. I still had a lot of hair. Like, I got rid of the ponytail, but my hair was still up to here. And I actually, deep down, I wanted to get a fake cut. I wanted to get my hair cut this short. but I was scared too because it's like my first short haircut, and then like I didn't want to. I was scared of overdoing it, so I just started with like cutting it up to here. But then as the months went by, I sort of felt dysphoric about that. I'm like, it's shorter than before. I don't have that long ponytail anymore, but it's still dysphoric in a way. It's still too long. I honestly don't even remember like whether I passed as a man or not. Like I don't even know how people perceive me because like I dress very masculine. Like I don't wear skirts and dresses, and I'm not really into makeup and any of that stuff. Like, and I don't really like doing my fingernails either. So I dress very masculine, and my hair was this long. I actually honestly don't remember whether I passed or not. But there was the next haircut I got was in May or June. And I got my hair cut short, accidentally too short, and it didn't look great. Like it was an ugly haircut. But I remember from then I passed as a man in different circumstances. The catch is though, I only passed until I opened my mouth to speak, because based on the way I dressed and the way I dressed and looked from a physical appearance standpoint, I passed as a man once I started talking, and my voice was high because this was before I went on testosterone, so my voice was not as deep as this. People knew. They started questioning, and I had someone tell me before, like, you look like a guy, but you sound like a girl. And I was like, I'm like, oh my god. Not at this point. I was still working through internalized transphobia. I still saw myself in a very negative and unhelpful way. Um, I still had a lot of fear and anxiety about living my truth and working through all that mess. Like I wasn't as confident as I am now, mid last year. And so yeah, that happened, and I didn't answer. I really did not answer because I didn't want to out myself, and it was just a very awkward situation. I've mentioned these next stories in a video before. I don't remember which one. I've made too many, so I'll just retell them here. If you've watched the other videos and you know about this, here's a retell. So yeah, during that time too, like there were a few points last year when I went to get COVID tests, and this was way before I got my legal name changed to Lev. This is way before I got my new ID as Lev, and this was when I even after I came out as trans last year, I didn't get my ID photo updated. So all of my ID were me with long hair before I got the short haircut. And so when I went to get COVID test, they were doing like the forms. I don't think they do it now, like right at this current point in time. They do everything electronically, but back then they still had like pen and paper stuff because COVID was relatively new, mid last year. And there was a question about gender, and there was like, or was it sex? I forgot. But it had like male, female. When they first looked at me, they ticked male, and once I started opening my mouth to speak, there was one time the worker crossed out the tick in male and then tick female, and there was another time where the worker initially ticked male too, and then heard me talk and just like, hold on, like I think in their head they were like, hold on, so they were like, they paused a little bit. They're like, can I see your ID? And yeah, my ID wasn't changed. I didn't get new photos of my short haircut, and so when they looked at my ID, it was the version of me with long hair, and it confirmed in their mind that I am a woman that looks like a guy. So they tick female, and I was too scared to fix them and say, hey, I'm actually a guy and I'm trans. Again, this was when I wasn't confident. I still was not confident living my truth, and internalized transphobia wrecked my brain. So I just let it slide, but I just felt so dysphoric inside. Just even having people question, because I didn't, again, physically, I look like a guy, but when I start talking, they realize, wait, this person actually might not be a guy. So that wasn't fun. And I don't, I think at that time too, even though I did physically pass as a man, I stopped using women's restrooms. I started using accessible bathrooms. Like I didn't go into the men's restroom or the women's restroom. I used the accessible bathrooms because that's what I felt safest with at that point in time. And I didn't want to use women's restroom because dysphoria, and I'm not a man, and I found it very uncomfortable going into women's restrooms and using the restroom because I'm a man, and I was scared of going into men's restrooms because I was scared of being outed as trans somehow, or people finding out I'm trans and getting verbally assaulted or physically assaulted in the men's restroom. And that's why I felt safe in using accessible bathrooms at the time. Towards the tail end of last year, it was like September, October, or maybe even August, as I started feeling more confident in my identity. And even though I hadn't went on testosterone yet, I started growing more confident to use men's restrooms. And once I started getting the momentum, I kept using restrooms, and to this day, essentially, just using men's restrooms. And it's also very challenging and frustrating and nerve wracking when I'm sort of stuck in limbo where, like, I half pass. It's just a very uncomfortable position to be in. Yeah, ever since I went on testosterone and my voice started deepening, people stopped questioning my gender, and like right now, people don't question my gender because I look like a guy and I sound like a guy. So I fully, I'm fully perceived and read and treated as a man. Um, and another thing about my past experience is right now, given that people read me and treat me as a man and not a woman, because I pass, people don't misgender me. Last year, people misgendered me a lot because, again, I look like a guy, but I sound like a girl, quote. And that really fed into dysphoria as well. Not passing led to being misgendered, but right now, and have been for this whole year really, passing and not being misgendered is a nice feeling. But I will talk about the double-edged sword and why the idea of passing can be problematic as well. So I want to start by talking about, I guess, the benefits and the positives that have come out of passing for me personally. The first one is I don't get misgendered, even though people assume pronouns. They assume correctly, saying he, him, because I look and sound like a typical man. I fit the society's or the stereotype of what a typical man looks and sounds like. Second thing is that I'm also stealth, so people see me as like I don't think people walking by me on the street who don't know me thinks this guy is trans. Like I fit into, I'd say most people think I'm a cis man, which is good because I don't get like harassed or targeted. Another thing is that people don't question my gender like they did before I got the short haircut, and started going testosterone with the deepening voice. Like people question my gender really did lead to further dysphoria. It fueled dysphoria. It was not the cause of dysphoria, but it was like pouring oil onto the fire. The questioning my gender was the oil that's being poured on the fire, which just makes it worse. And people not questioning me means I don't have to explain myself to people in order to not get misgendered or treated like a woman because I'm not a woman. By treated as a woman, I mean things like being referred to as she, her, being called madam, and just like the stereotypical or the norms. I don't know how to explain what I'm thinking. I'm gonna let that thought go for now because I don't know how to explain it. Um, Now moving on to the negatives and how the concept of passing can be problematic. Firstly, it reinforces existing gender stereotypes and how certain people should look, dress, act, express themselves based on gender. For example, I pass because I look like a stereotypical man and I sound like a stereotypical man, which can fuel the idea and the existing image of what trans men look like. Because I'm a trans man, it fuels the image of what trans men should look like and sound like and present like, which is problematic because not all trans men are masculine and express themselves and present in a masculine way, and that's okay. Like there are trans men out there who are more feminine, and that's okay. But like trans men being feminine is not like the status quo, and extending beyond trans men, just men, regardless of whether they're cis or trans, men being feminine in general is not the status quo. Like I don't, very rarely see a man wear a dress or a skirt in public, for example, and express themselves in that way, because I get the feeling there's gonna be a lot of backlash and judgment from that because only women wear dresses and skirts and present in such a way. Like, I can make a whole separate video about this, which like the whole gender stereotypes thing and having to fit certain boxes of how we look, dress, act, express ourselves. Like it's complete bullshit. I can make a separate video about that. Another problem I can think of is if trans and gender diverse people don't pass as the gender they are, their gender identity goes questioned. I also have experience of this. Like before I mention my story, people say I look like a guy but I sound like a girl because I don't fully pass as a man or what stereotypical man should look, act, sound like. Like the validity of one's gender identity, which is part of someone's core, I think, or is definitely part of my core, gets questioned based on self expression, which is also complete bullshit. Because gender expression is not the same thing as gender identity. For example, if I put on makeup and wear dresses and do my nails and present myself in a very feminine way, it doesn't make me less of a man, and presenting and dressing as masculine, which I am comfortable with and is me, doesn't make me more of a man. Like the validity of one's gender identity does not change and fluctuate in accordance to how one expresses themselves.